Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of My Bigfoot Sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of run-down no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know.
Hello, this is Carey. I would like to begin by picking up where I left off at episode 163. I had shared quite a few things that had happened over our 9 years of experiences with these Bigfoots that I, again, want to reiterate, 100% did not believe these things existed. And I'm sharing because I want people to know that they are real. I want people to know they're really real. I have nothing to gain from this, but everything to lose from this. I've been laughed at by most of my family, so I just want people to know these are real. One of my experiences right after my husband had pushed me out of the way from these military vehicles that were coming down our road. And like I had said, I don't know how they got in or how they got in there, because there's only one way in and one way out of our road. But it was beginning to be the point where I just couldn't take it anymore, and he couldn't take it anymore, because we were always on edge of something happening. And I didn't know, was that something going to be bad, or it hadn't been really, or was it, it was just always keeping us on edge, and nobody wants to live always on edge. Well, after he pushed me out of the way, we started hearing, it sounded like rocks. If you took big flat rocks and you were clacking them together. We were in front of our house. Well, beside us, we're on the edge of the road after I got out of the bushes, and these things, flew by us, and they would have definitely ran me and my dog over. They did not care that I was standing there. They did not look like any other vehicle I've ever seen in our town that I've ever seen before. Do I know for a 1,000,000% they were military vehicles? No, but from what I saw, and I have a whole family of military people, Marines, Army, they were military vehicles from what I saw. Then they would have run me over. We heard rocks clacking super loud from the side of the woods where the river was. And that was in front of our house. Well, behind our house was the flat field, and then it started to go up a hill into the deep Appalachian Smoky Mountains. Well, we would hear a rock clacking, sounded like rocks smacking super loud together. Could have been their hands, I don't know, but that's what I saw. Picture just sounded like rocks clacking together, like answering back. And then we heard a rapid gunfire. It sounded like it was louder, a little bit louder than a rifle, and it was really quick. So my husband's like, "Holy crap, that's an automatic weapon!" Somebody's like, and then we heard a scream, like two loud, really loud and long screams. Almost not exactly what I heard that one night when I first spotted one, but very similar. And we were both like, we're looking at each other like, holy crap, like, run, like, it's not, like, we definitely, getting inside of our house, I didn't even feel safe inside the house, like, and I can't run, and I wouldn't have run anyway, so we got the dogs, and we were probably 300 yards from our house, and we just got in the house as quickly as we could. We heard that gunfire, and it must have been, I don't know, 15 rapid gunfire shots like that, and there was 2 sets of it. There was a pause in between a few minutes, and then it would happen again. We hear the rocks clacking or smacking together, a couple screams, and it was like all hell broke loose. And by this time, it had just turned dark, and we were like, oh no, we're getting in the house. This is a modular home we're living in. I mean, the walls were paper thin. I didn't even feel safe inside. I didn't know where I felt safe. Nowhere. Not my vehicle, not there. In that situation, I don't think there was anywhere to feel safe. And we were just like, okay. I was standing up, and he's like, don't stand by the window. And I was like, well, don't stand there. And he's like, don't stand. I mean, like, where do you stand? Do you lay on the floor? Do you lay under your bed? Like, what do you do in that situation? So we just kind of sat on the bed and we prayed. I just couldn't take it anymore. I said, we have to move. I just can't deal with this. I can't deal with this anymore. And he said, I agree. Well, we had put the house up for sale, and I didn't even want to sleep in the bedroom anymore because, I don't know, I just wanted to sleep in the middle of the living room on the love seat, which was kind of like a recliner. It would kick back. And he was like, okay, I'm not going to let you stay out here by yourself. I'm like, you don't have to sleep out here too. And he's like, well, I'll sleep on the couch. That's fine. So it's about 2:30 in the morning. He's sleeping on the couch. And for some reason, my cat starts crying, and she's just going nuts. And usually when she starts my one cat, especially my girl cat, and this is the cat that I don't know, she feels things a lot differently than my boy cat. She's way more sensitive to stuff, energy. So she starts going nuts at the window, and I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. And I woke up a few seconds before she started going nuts. I felt something was off, and I was in a very deep sleep. Believe it or not, those love seat recliners can actually be pretty comfortable. So I'm laying there, sitting there laying there, and I'm just looking around. I didn't move, and I'm waiting to see what happens. Well, all of a sudden, I hear this really, really loud owl, and it sounds like if you took an owl and you put a microphone like right inside his mouth, and that who was so loud. I've heard owls before. Like I said, I've hunted. I grew up playing in the woods. I've hiked. I even got stuck up on the peaks of Otter Mountains way up in West Virginia at dark. I stay up there too long. And I've heard owls, and this was not an owl. And you could tell it wasn't an owl. It had that ting to its scream, or it's when these Bigfoot scream, or these cryptids or Bigfoot scream. And one thing about their scream is it's very, very long, and they don't need to take a breath like humans do. They can scream for 15 to 30 seconds, is loud, and I mean, so loud, you feel like your ears are bleeding. So loud and so long. It sounded like it's and it has, like, when it screams like that, it almost sounds like it's screaming through a metal tube. It almost has like a not just an echo, but like a ting, like a metal ting to it. Like if you would yell, like a human would yell through aluminum tube, it would sound like that metal ting to it. And I don't know if that's their vocal cords or what that is, but that's what it sounded like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did I just hear that? And I'm like, okay, that's just a really loud owl right close to the window. Well, then it did it again. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I got ready to wake my husband up, and I waited a few seconds, I waited a few minutes, and that was it. And I'm like, every night, it doesn't matter what room I'm in, something is always happening. Well, the house was up for sale, and after we had everything packed up, we we were leaving. We had, I don't really remember, if anything. I don't think anything else happened in between. It was just so, I started losing track. I'm like, I'm going to have to start writing this stuff down, because at first I was like, okay, it's one thing and another and another. I could remember 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, but I mean, like, it was just ridiculous. Like, it was like every other day, if not every day, something small or something big was happening. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I said, I'm going to have to start writing this stuff down, because it's so much I'm starting to lose track of it. Before we left, I had mentioned it to one of my neighbors that lived down the street. She lived on that street her whole life. She's very country, and she doesn't even get on Facebook. I mean, and I said, ask her about this. And she's like, oh, we don't talk about that. Nobody talks about that here. No, I could not get nobody would talk about it. Everybody shut me down. Well, my next door neighbor, she lived there 25 years next door to me, a little ways down. And I tried to ask her about it, and she wouldn't talk about it. She just started to change the subject and acted like I didn't even say anything. I thought she didn't hear me. And I said, are you having any strange experiences or Bigfoot or anything like that? And she just changed the subject. Like, I'm like thinking, did she not hear me? Or like, and then I realized she's totally acting like I didn't even say it. Well, she had this ginormous butterfly bush. It must have been about 10 feet tall and about 6 feet wide. And it was very beautiful in front of her house she planted when she first moved in. So I went over there. What brought it up is she had gotten cancer. She went to the doctor, thought she was just had stomach problems, and she came home, and she realized they told her she had every organ in her body. She had cancer and had 2 weeks left to live, which was not what you want to hear. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. So I went over there because she texted me and told me when she got home, see if there's anything I could do. And I said to her, well, where is your butterfly bush? And she's like, this is the strangest thing. She's like, Carey, I came outside this morning and it was completely smashed to the ground. And I'm like, what do you mean smashed to the ground? And she's like, it looked like someone took a steamroller and just completely smashed it to the ground. All the sticks were broken. There was and I said, I'm not understanding what you mean. She's like, it was as flat as a notebook. 70-page notebook on the ground. I'm like, what the heck? Like, well, was anything else smashed around it or beside it? Because she had really pretty rose bushes. She was like, no, nothing else. Nothing else is smashed beside it. I'm like, well, how can one big bush in between a bunch of other bushes be smashed and nothing else is? She's like, I have no idea. And then she just gave me the look like, you know what I'm talking about. And that was it. So she ended up passing away. A new family moved in there from upstate New York. And it was just a husband and wife. They moved there. He wanted to retire, kind of like us. He had PTSD. He was retired military. He liked to sit out in the backyard at nighttime. So I went over there one day to bring them. We got their mail by accident. And he's like, do you mind if I talk to you for a second? And I'm like, sure. And my husband was outside too. So he says, is there anything strange going on around here I need to know about? And I looked at my husband and he looked at me and we were both like, oh my gosh, like, do we tell him? Is he going to think we're nuts? Like, this is not what you tell your brand new neighbor. Like, what do you say? And he's like, it's okay, you can tell me. And I said, well, why? What happened? He's like, well, I sit out back at night when I can't sleep at 10 or 11 o'clock in the backyard by the lawn chair. Well, their backyard was fenced in, and then it starts a very, very thick woods, and it just starts out slow incline, just goes up, 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 and just keeps going up and just starts to flow into the rest of the deep Smoky Mountains. And I said, well, why? What happened? And so I'm sitting out here, and you see, I saw a black cat. Well, the whole time I lived there, I saw dogs, people lose dogs run through occasionally, and never saw a cat. Never, besides mine, and they stayed inside. And he said, I saw a black cat walking through the yard, and it just walked right to the fence and disappeared, like a normal-sized black cat. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, and it looked at me. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. And I'm like, well, maybe it just jumped the fence and you didn't see it. So he says, well, that's not all. I'm sitting out here by the fire, and I've heard blood-curdling screams like a woman being murdered coming from the woods. And he's like, I almost wanted to jump up and pull my weapon. He's like, and my hair stood up. He's like, I didn't even know where it was coming from. And he says, and that's happened several times. So I said to my husband, well, do we tell him or do we? And he's like, yeah, go ahead, tell me. So we told him, and he's like, oh yeah, 100%. He's like, we lived in the Adirondacks, and that happened all the time. And I'm like, the Adirondacks? He's like, yeah, upstate New York mountains. And he's like, that happened all the time there, 100%. So I told him that, and he's like, the weird thing is, when I was sitting out there, he says, when this cat looked at me, I heard this voice thought in my head, you are going to die soon. And he's like, I just thought that was my PTSD and me freaking out. Well, within a few months, right after we moved, that man did end up dying. Cancer in every organ of his body, exactly like the woman, the neighbor that I had become friends with that lived there. And which I thought was very, very strange. So when the day we were leaving, I walked down to my neighbor that had lived there forever, the one I tried to talk to before about, if she'd seen anything, and she said no, and she didn't want to talk about it. And as I was walking to her house, and of course I was bringing my dog, there was a edge of a little wood line, like you walk this little country road. 2 cars can go by, but it's really narrow. And there's a little wood line, and it's about 10 feet off the ground in some areas. Dirt, tree line starts, and it just goes straight up. Well, every time it was fall, we moved. Gosh, I don't even know. We moved so many times to get away from this stuff. I know it was fall because the leaves were all down and it was crunchy. So every time I took a step, I heard crunch. I take a step, I heard crunch. It was almost exactly with mine, but I was on the road and there was no leaves. So I'm thinking, how am I hearing a crunch when every time I take a footstep when there's clearly no leaves on the asphalt? And my dog looks up at the wood line, and I'm talking 7 feet away, 8 feet away, tops distance from right on the edge of the road. And this is just up maybe a 10-foot little dirt ridge line that the mountain's kind of a mountain and it starts. And so finally I knew that they could read my mind if they were close enough, because they told me before about the door. Do not bother. It will not do any good against us when that it was at the door that time. So I knew that I had to do something quick and not think about it, if I did very quickly. So I went to take a step down and I stopped midway, my foot in the air. And then it took a step down and I heard the footfall, and I heard crunch. So I spun around and I pointed right at the wood line. Like I pointed and I'm like, I gotcha. And I said it real loud, and I heard, it was like if a deaf person would start laughing. It was like childlike, but if like a deaf person was laughing, and I'm standing there like, oh my gosh, like, holy crap, like, I want to run back, I want to hide, like, I don't, it is literally right here, and I cannot see it. It was fall, and there's a lot of trees, but all the leaves were off the trees, and I'm standing 8 feet away. I could see all through those trees. I should 100% been able to see it, and I could not see it. So I'm like, okay, we're going back home, buddy, come on. So I spun around real quick with my dog, and I was getting it back to the house. On my pathway on the road back to the house, No cars had driven by me. This is one way in, one way out. It ends at a dead end at the wildlife management, the end of the road. I had just walked this road, because I was going to my friend's to let her know that, we were moving soon, and to see if she wanted any stuff we were getting rid of, or if she wanted to help. And it was maybe quarter of a football field length the way back. I come around this corner and I look and I see this dead, skinned squirrel, completely skinned, no fur on it at all. And I knew it was a squirrel because I could see a little tuft of the tail on there. Exactly placed in the middle of the road, fresh as could be. The meat was pink as could be. Like something did it and just put it there. Like it was almost like a present for me. And I'm looking at this like, what in God's name am I looking at? Like, what the heck? Thank you, but I'm good. I'll have some chicken nuggets before I eat squirrel. I mean, no offense to people that eat it, but no thank you. And I'm looking at this like, there's no freaking way. Like, it hasn't even been 5 minutes. I literally just passed. There's no cars come down this road to hit anything. And I'm sure if a car hit a squirrel, all the skin is going to be peeled off of it. I've seen no people, no dogs, no nothing, no anybody except for me and my dog. And I'm like, this is just too freaking weird. So I go in to get back to the house to tell my husband, which is like a 3-minute walk. I can see my house from where the squirrel is. I get in the house to tell him, and then I'm like, come on, I'll show you. We walk right outside. As soon as I get in the house, I tell him, and he gets his shoes on. We go right outside, and it's gone. Completely gone. And I'm like, that's so, and there's no birds. I'm not seeing any birds fly around, like no, nothing. No, I doubt, yes, there's coyotes in the area. I'd never seen one the whole time I lived there. There's no buzzards flying around. There's nothing that I saw. So I'm like, yeah, this, I don't know if they're leaving me a present or what this was. So we leave, we pack up. And my friend helps me, we say our goodbyes. I'm driving my SUV and pulling a little trailer, and my husband's driving a giant 26-foot Penske truck. Well, we have the directions. So we both pull out in the road in front of our house. It's not like any, major highway. You can stop in the road. No, I mean, few cars a day, if that, come down the road. We pull out in the road, we stop, and I stopped him. So I'm like, wait a minute, I want to make sure in case we get separated on the highway, we both have the exact address. So I get out and I'm like, okay, pull your phone out. And he gets out. And he's like, oh, yeah, I want to pray for our trip before we go. And I'm like, yeah, it's a great idea. And I'm like, let's do our addresses, make sure we get the same address to where we're going in case we get separated. So he looks at his phone. I look at my phone. And all of a sudden, he's like, at the same time, he's like, I feel like we're being watched. I'm like, me too. I said, from behind us, behind the house, like the mountains, and then behind you where the river is in the woods. I said both sides. He's like, yeah, me too. He's like, it's really strong. And then we looked at our phones, and my phone has never done this and never done it before. It's almost like if you scroll through and you flip the whole page up. The whole page up, straight up. It was doing that. And his was like jumping, like blinking, screen. It was going like a million different screens, like screens he'd never even, or who knows, he'd clicked on it from the time he got the phone, 3 years ago. It was just screen. And mine's jumping, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, whoa, look at my phone, it's freaking out. And he's like, I can't. I'm looking at my phone. My phone's freaking out. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Let me see it. So he shows me his phone, and I show him mine. I'm like, what the heck? What is happening right now? This has never happened. Like, especially not both of our phones at the same time. There was no storm. There wasn't any wind. There was nothing. Our cell phone bill had just been renewed last week. There was no reason why both of our phones, and he was on a different plan and had a different cell phone carrier than me too, by the way. We were not on a phone plan. We had the monthly monthly, like, $30 a month or whatever it is you pay as you go kind of thing. So we weren't even on like a contract. And he had a different phone carrier than I did. He had Verizon, I had AT&T. So I don't even know how that could be happening at the exact same time. So he goes, I have an idea. Hold on. He turns around and he faces the river where the woods are. And then he was like, okay, guys. And then he faces the mountains behind our house, which by this time, so we're in the road, is about half a football field length away. And he says, bye, guys. We're saying goodbye. We have to go. We're going because there's better health care for Carey and for my job, and we just need a bigger place to live. So that's why we're leaving. We're not leaving you guys. We want to say goodbye and thank you for everything. And the second he said that, and he's looking at his phone up and down, and I'm looking at my phone at the same time. And as soon as he says that, immediately both of our phones completely just stopped. And we're normal, and the GPS has popped up. And I'm like, whoa, I just got GPS signal. He's like, me too. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, yeah, they were messing with our phones, both of our phones at the exact same time. I couldn't believe it. So we after he thanked them, and he's like, we love you guys, and kind of just made peace with them and said goodbyes. Both of our phones completely stopped at the exact same time. There's no explanation for that. If we had the same plan, the same carrier, hadn't paid our bill, any of that, I could understand. But I don't know why. I don't know why that happened. I just I can't explain it. So when we left, that's when we had moved to Kentucky, and the same thing. There was handprints, greasy, wasn't greasy, it was like oil. There was fingerprints all over, high up, 10, 12 feet in the air, where an oily handprint or half a handprint was high up, where something had leaned against it and was looking in windows. As soon as we moved in there, that was like, I don't know, that wasn't even any better of where we moved. When we got there was a 4-car garage detached from the house. It was on a few acres on top of a country road, and we were about 25 minutes from Mammoth Cave. Well, when there was two caves on this property that I found, and they weren't big openings. They were small, but you could tell they were caves. As soon as I saw that, I was kind of concerned. We did not look at the property before we went out there because we were just ready to go. I knew we had to get out of there. So we get to this place, and when we get to this place, this garage, the first night, something is banging on the garage doors, below the lower garage doors. It's like, and it's in the back. It's very remote. It's a big old gravel, like you could fit 8 cars back there. They used to have a body shop, so you could fit quite a few cars back there to be parked. And then it's a steep, oh gosh, probably 50 foot, almost straight down drop off. Well, it probably goes 70 feet, like vertical, going down. So, and then it's woods all around, and there's a big giant pond at the bottom of the property. The pond was not on our property, but it was like right on the line, and it was property that some old company used that was out of business. Just nobody ever went back there. There was nobody around. So they would run by, or something would, and there was 4 bay garage doors, and it'd be bam, 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 all night long. And it was so loud that my husband had to get earplugs and put pillows on each side of his head. And I just got used to it. It'd be like if you lived where a train was and the train went by all the time, you would just get used to it. They did that all night long, every single night. And finally, I just had enough, and I went out there, and I was yelling at the woods, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening to my life right now? So I'm yelling at the woods for them to stop jumping on Stop banging on the garage door. Just stop. So they did, for the most part, probably 90%. But what they started doing was I'd be outside, shaking my dog's, the hair out of my dog's blankets and making their dog beds, during the day and in the morning. And I would hear the down below garage door opening. And I'm like, that sure sounds like a garage. So I tell my husband, he'd go down there and it would be garage number door 2 would be open. So he'd go shut it. Next day, same thing. It'd be garage door number 4 open. Next day, same thing. Garage door number 1. Garage door number... It was like a game. He'd go down, shut it, they open, shut it, open, shut. It was a different door every day. And finally, he realized that there was no... We had an electrician come out too, by the way. Paid an electrician to come out. And he's like, no, this is a whole brand new setup. There's nothing wrong with any of the electrical. I've tested everything. He's like, I don't know what's happening. Every garage door had a different garage door opener too. So he had to pull, he said, the circuit board or panel board or something out, the whole electrical board out, whatever that means. So none of them would work, basically, because they would not stop doing that. So I'm like, I go out there and I'm like, thanks, guys. Now we can't even open any garage doors. So this is what it's resorting to because I yelled at you for banging on them. Now you're going to open them. I'm like, knock it off. Just knock the crap off. Just stop. Leave it alone. Just stop banging on them. Stop messing with them. So they did. But the next night, we hear them, this building now, it's kind of built into the hillside because this house is on top of a hill and it's on a slope. And there is a fenced yard that connects with the house and a back deck. Well, the back deck is covered, and you go about, a half an acre of a fenced-in middle area, and then it goes right up against this garage building. Well, this garage building is kind of built into a hillside. There's a concrete wall, a cinder block wall, and if you stand on the hill, you only have to jump up like 4 feet, and you can get right on top of the roof. Well, the people we bought the house from just had a metal roof to this garage building painted, and it was good paint too. It looked nice, as brand new. So I start seeing these oily handprints on the edge of the cinder block wall. So I'm like, I'm talking to them. I'm outside. I'm like, are you guys jumping up on this wall? I'm like, knock it off. So the next day I look and there's a little pile of rocks out there on top of this wall. So the next, go out again a couple days later and I start noticing red paint. I guess the original piece of tin or metal that they made this roof out of, well, the paint is getting worn off, just like had happened before to another house we lived in. The shingles got worn off. Well, the paint was getting worn off. And we could see red showing. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just from a storm, or maybe, the heat made some of the paint bubble up, or maybe this, maybe that. But then there was more. And I can hear something, and I swear it sounded like something running, boom, 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 running across this metal roof. And it was long. It was a 5-car bay garage, so it was long. You could hear it running all the way across it, back and forth. And it looked like, if you looked at it, I tried to take a picture, but it didn't show up, hair, like they'd climb up it and they'd slide down, like a slide, and they were wearing the paint off of it. I almost felt like I was living in the middle of a playground, like all this equipment and stuff was their playground. So we moved in there late fall, almost winter time, and I was able to see all through the woods on the property. So I kind of walked all through there. If it had been jungly, I would not have done it by myself. I'm walking all through there, and I see the pond. Well, in front of the pond, I find this weird structure. It looks like, if you look like back in the day, how people used to have outhouses, it looks like an outhouse, except it doesn't have a front door. Pretend like it's someone built an outhouse, but there's no front door and there's no back door. There's the sides and the roof. But the crazy thing is, it's made all out of greenery. I've seen these things you can order off Amazon. Like if you have a back deck and you have like a hot tub or something, you don't want people to see you, you can order this greenery like curtain and you can just, pull it out like an accordion. That's what this looked like, except it was real. It was all like stuff that stayed green year round, that this little building, I don't know, it was big enough for a Bigfoot to stand in. As big as the one I saw, it was tall enough and big enough just to stand in, right up against the pond. Well, the thing about the pond was there was a lot of a really, really big deer in Kentucky. And these deer, that's where we moved. We moved to Kentucky. That's where these deer would go to drink from the pond. That was the closest water around. And it was, so if a deer went to drink at this pond, it could be hiding in this little building thing, I don't know, makeshift shack without a front door or back door, and just reach out and grab one and the deer would never see him. And I was like, wow, that is so weird how it was all woven together. And I saw a cave, 2 caves on the property. One I took pictures of. It was like a small hole in the ground, maybe the size of about, 20 inches by 20 inches. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it went down and you could see it was like tunneled all through there, right in our backyard. And I was like, oh my gosh, it did not look like, it wasn't like any kind of groundhog thing. It wasn't like under a tree root. No, it was actually a cave in the ground. And on the other part of the property, there was an actual cave on the hillside that 12 feet high, 10 feet wide, like an actual cave. And I said to my husband, I don't want to go in this cave, but let's walk up close to it and just take a peek in. I'm just so curious. So I said this to him on a Saturday. We were going to do it after church on Sunday the next day. We go to church. Our church happens to be literally, you walk to the end of our driveway and you can see the church, except it's a country road and you're not going to be wanting to walk down a country road because there's really no shoulder of the road. The shoulder of the road is very thick and wooded and it drops, straight down into deep ravines and hollers. So we're driving to church right across the street from our house, and this tree right in front of the cave, like dead center in front of the cave door opening. My husband's like, oh my gosh, stop. And I'm like, what? And I look, and you cannot miss it. This tree, I would say 3-4 feet around. I mean, it's a big, live, solid like a poplar oak. It's not like a pine. It's not some kind of bendy tree. There was no storm. There was no wind the day or night before. And we had just driven down this road, and I would have seen it because we walked this little path in the Woodline to take the dogs to the bathroom. So the whole top of the tree is snapped off, and it's not just snapped, the typical sideways snap. It's snapped sideways, pulled down, like peeled down, and then twisted round and round and round. And it's like, it looks like a spiral. And I'm like, what? And you can see the white, just the pitch white of the tree. And you could tell it had just happened, and nothing, and it was right in the middle of a bunch of other thick woods. No, and the other trees were this is a really heavily wooded area. Every other tree around it was perfectly fine. And I'm like, what the heck? How can one tree be messed up and not any other trees touched that are completely circling around this? And we had no wind and no storm. And he's like, you just said you wanted to go look at this cave today, didn't you? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I think that's a stay away. And I'm like, so I would have to agree with you. I really don't feel like I want to go look at this cave now. I wasn't going to go in it. I just wanted to take a peek. And obviously that was a no. So we never went anywhere. We never went anywhere near that cave. The banging continued, even though after a while it continued again. The people that we bought the house from they would never, we could never find out why they moved. They had this house specially built. They drew up the plans and everything, and they lived there a very short time, and they left very short time. And they were going to have a business there, so they started like a car body shop there, where the last garage did not have a roof on it. That's why you could see the cinder block wall they would climb up on and get to the other part of the garages that were all attached, that where the roof started. Well, they had left 2.5 full big pallets of brand new cinder blocks. Well, I would walk down there and just check out, make sure everything was okay in this building. It was a huge building inside. We didn't need it. It just came with the property, so it basically sat there empty. And I would go down there, and there would be these rock piles on top of the cinder blocks. And the cinder blocks would come up about to my waist where the pallet, stopped, a pallet full of them, where they'd be these round rocks that look like they came from this pond down below. And you'd start with one, about 5 inches, and then there'd be another flat one on top of it, 4 inches, another flat one on top of that, 3 inches, 2 inches, and it would just continue all the way till it got to a teeny tiny pebble, and it was perfectly, you would have to have a ruler to have these things lined up the way they were perfectly stacked up and lined up. So my husband asked me, "Did you do this?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "This is so crazy. Like, look at the rocks down on the ground back here. These are just like driveway gravel, gray, crappy looking rocks. Like, these are like cool, smoothed out, round, flat, like river rocks." I'm like, "No, I don't even know where these rocks came from." So then he started taking pieces of wood that was just laying on the ground and making crosses and sticking it next to them, letting them know, we believe in Jesus. We, love the Lord. We, we're not bad people, just to see what their response was. Well, that day we had, there's a lot of bad storms in that area that we lived in quite often. A lot of heavy rain, very heavy rain, kind of like in Tennessee, rain like every 3 days, and it rains a lot there. So we had a storm, and our power went out. Well, it went out about 4 o'clock, and it did not come back on. It was 9 o'clock at night, and it was pitch black, like pitch black. Since this time, I have gotten a lot of rechargeable lights because of this reason. And about 9 o'clock at night, there was no power, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my phone is going to die soon. Like, I can't keep using my light on my phone. Like, we had got no light. What are we going to do? All our candles are still packed up. We hadn't finished unpacking. This was only like 3-4 months after we moved in. And when the power went out, 9 o'clock at night, in our master bedroom, there was a big, long 14-foot closet, walk-in closet, and it had a window in there. Well, the window was like waist high for me inside, but outside it was probably, 8 feet off the ground. So I go, getting ready to go to bed, and I'm getting ready to get my night clothes out of the closet, using my phone for light to see my way in there, and I hear in my head, "Look outside. We're outside." And I'm thinking, huh? Like what? I'm looking around, and I hear again, "Look," and it says exactly like this, like a thought. "Look outside. We are outside." So I'm like, no thanks, no way, nope, I'm not doing that, nope, not doing that again. So I take my phone, and I put my phone right up against the window on the other side of the mini blind, and these are like those plastic, not the cheapy ones you get from Walmart, but they had really nice mini blinds in this house. They were like wooden. So I stuck my phone right against the window on the other side of the mini blind, and I was just snap, 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 and sliding my phone all the way up and down the window, a million different directions. And I did not know this until after the fact, until later on, and I looked at the pictures. And I looked at the pictures, and I see light wands. Like, it almost looked like if you're on Star Wars and you're holding this big light wand out, fluorescent light wand. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't know, 10 feet up in the air in the middle of our front yard. And remember, nobody has power. There's no, where we live, there's no street lights. When the power goes out, it is pitch black unless you have something. It's not in a neighborhood. It's out in the country. There's houses around. They're spread far out. And the ones you can see, nobody's got any power. And there's no street lights because it's a very tight country windy road, and it's just not a place where you could put street lights up. They just don't do that there. So I see another light wand. I see one straight, and it's got a bend to it, and there's just no way. You could have, I don't know, there's just no way. And then we have a flagpole in the front. Well, the flagpole, it looks like a light, a big bright light is just like busting out of the top of this flagpole. That storm had long passed. That was 4:00 in the afternoon. It was dead quiet. There wasn't a storm. There wasn't a wind, no electricity. And on this flagpole, we did not have any kind of solar light. It was just a plain flagpole. Nothing should have been emitting any light off the top of this flagpole because it was pitch black outside. And I just couldn't believe when I saw those pictures, when I saw that. And so when I took all those pictures and, saw them the next day, and I also heard, in my head, I felt that they were in the house. And that was the first time I actually felt they were in the house. And I wake up, it's like 2:30 in the morning, and I open my eyes real quick, and my cat started like, meow, like freaking out at the same time. And she sleeps on me the exact same time I woke up. Well, our bedroom door, you can see, if you're laying in the bed, first thing you open your eyes, you see the bedroom door in the hallway. There's a long hallway. You go to the left. It's about 14 feet long. It goes out the back door to the covered deck that goes to all the, the garages and the woods and all that. And the front of that hallway goes into the kitchen. And it's just a long, narrow hallway. And there's no lights on. Well, there's no power, still no power. And I open my eyes, and the whole hallway is lit up from the bottom to the top. It almost looks like if you took the biggest, brightest, like a flashlight, as big as your, as big as a love seat, and just lit it up. The whole hallway is just one big, ginormous fluorescent flash of light. And it's so bright, like I kind of squinted my eyes a little bit at the time, and it looked like very white fluorescent. And it was like 1 Mississippi, 2, it was gone. And I'm like, what the heck was that? It couldn't have been lightning because it wasn't storming. And even if it had been lightning, and I know it doesn't have to storm to have lightning. Even if it was lightning, there was no windows in that area for the entire hallway to light up from top to bottom and side to side like that. The back door had a blackout curtain on it, and it only had a short, tiny little window. And where that hallway ended, there was no window. It just couldn't have lit up. Not like that. It was just weird the way the whole thing lit up. It totally blew my mind. And then I look over in the corner of the room, and I see this it almost looks like a butterfly in the corner of the room. And I'm tapping my husband. I'm like, look. And he's like, what? And I'm like, do we have a nightlight? He's like, no, and we have no power. So what do you need a nightlight for? I'm like, no, I don't need one. Look in the corner of the room. Look. And so I'm like, screw this. I'm not messing with him. He's half asleep. So I grab my phone and I take a picture, and it looks like this little thing with wings about, I don't know, size of my whole hand or maybe smaller, in the corner of the room with this fluorescent white light again. And I was able to get like 2 pictures of it, and then it was gone. And I don't know, but I felt that something was in the house. So the next day, like I said, after the storm, This is all around the time of the storm. So the next day, we go outside to assess what happened with the storm, if anything. We go to the back to look look at the rocks, and that's where we take the dogs to go to the bathroom and all that. Because you don't be walking around the front yard, stepping in doggy poop. So we kind of take them out of the way. And he's like, Carey, look up in the tree. And I look. There's a cross, a wooden cross. It looks like two sticks broken off. They're probably, gets really hard to tell. It must have been 20 feet in the air, 15, 20 feet in the air, really, really high. I'd probably say 20 feet in the air. I don't know, 15 to 20 feet. They're about 4 inches around, broken off, really nice, fresh, they were like, there was no bark on them. Okay. And they were like kind of whitish yellow, like they had gotten wet from the storm, but there was no bark on them, and they were woven together in a cross. Like there was some kind of twine. I don't know if it was from a tree, really thin piece of bark, tying them together in the middle, but you could see them tied together in the middle, and they were just suspended, hanging out from a tree branch, like almost at the end of the tree branch, hanging out away from the tree, just hanging there completely by itself, right in front of your face. Like if you walk down there, you can't miss it. It's like you just looking straight ahead, and it almost smacks you in the face if you look up. You're like, what the heck? And it's a cross just hanging there in a tree. And I don't know how they hung it there because it was so high up, but maybe fishing line if I had to guess, because I couldn't even see anything that it was hanging from. I mean, it couldn't just be hanging there. I mean, well, it probably could. At this point, anything could be real, but I couldn't see anything that was hanging it there. So if I had to guess, I would say fishing line. I mean, there was a lot of places around the area to fish, so that would be my guess. But they had done a cross exactly like my husband was doing, putting on this concrete slab that was left cinder block slab that was left, pallet. And they had done the exact same thing. And I just couldn't believe that was hanging there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys copied exactly what he did. This is so weird. So we just kind of, and there was no like tree damage. And even if there was, I doubt a tree during a storm is going to be able to form a cross, tie a cross, and then suspend it from a tree 20 feet in the air at the end of its branch. I mean, how do you explain that? I'm sorry, but if there's a storm, there's lightning, there's wind, that's not explainable. It was a perfect cross. And I took pictures of it, So the next day, or a few days after this, I said to my husband, I'm like, we're having the same trouble here. And I said, I put the dogs out on the back deck, and as soon as I put them out there, they start growling. The rocks were hitting the back deck again. But it was like you were living with a bunch of wild teenagers that just were all over the house. The roof, you could hear them jumping on the roof at nighttime, like the roof we were living in, not just the garage. And like I would go outside we'd take the trash out to the end of the driveway. Both trash cans would be pulled all the way back. Okay, my husband would drag both trash cans out to the end of the driveway for trash day the next morning. And then he'd come back in and be like, oh crap, I forgot to get our trash cans out of the bathroom. He'd come in and get them from me, turn right around and go back out. And he'd be like, well, wait a minute. Did you just come outside? And I'm like, no, I literally just handed you the bags of trash. Like, why? And he's like, I swear I just pulled both trash cans out to the curb. And that would happen over and over and over to make him think he was crazy. Sometimes my truck door would be open, and we would have the windows open, and I would hear my truck. If you have the door open, you would hear bing, bing, bing if your door is open. And I'm like, why'd you go in my truck? He's like, I didn't. I'm sitting on the couch, like watching TV or taking a nap. Just little stuff was messing with us. And I'm like, I'm not happy here. I want to go. I don't like it here. I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe here. And it just started amping up like a lot. We were taking a nap one Saturday, and we had the windows open. It was I don't know. I don't remember. It was fall, spring, whatever. It was just a nice day. We had the windows open, like 60 something, and we were in the living room taking a nap. We were so tired from deciding if we were going to finish unpacking or just keep it packed. And all of a sudden, we hear this loud, like the typical, how people describe loud yell. It starts up like, woo, goes really high, really, really long, and then it starts to go way down, like pitch, like, woo, like, and then goes back, but so long and so loud. And we just look at each other, like he's on one couch and I'm on the other. We just kind of look at each other like, did you just hear that? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, what the heck was that? There's no kids around where we lived. There's no, you can't get to our property. It's not like you're going to go walking down the street to your neighbor's house. It's not like that. Windy country roads, and everybody's house is kind of on like a top of a little mountain or hill. So to get to someone's house, you have to really be able to, hike up 70 to 80 degree incline. Some of these are almost straight up, and then go back down or drive and pull in someone's driveway. So, and we can see the woods outside. So there wasn't like anybody was out there, or I'm not saying people don't exist, but just shouldn't have been anybody out there. And there really wasn't anybody around the whole time that we lived there on the property besides us. So I'm like, you guys really got to leave us alone. Just please leave us alone. Stop bothering us. So the next morning, my husband starts yelling for me. Oh my gosh, Carey, come here. You're not going to believe this. And I'm thinking, oh dear God, I don't think I can take it. I don't know what now. I don't even want to know. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's like, you got to see this. So I come and I look, and I forget the number of them. I think because I'm still so shocked. There must have been at least 4, maybe 6 giant. They were the size, I've never even seen. I didn't even know they got this big. Turtles, the size of dinner plates, like their average, not a teacup saucer, a dinner plate that you would eat off of. 4 or 6 of them. I don't remember the exact number, but I know it was at least 4 of them. There are the black painted turtles that are in the, creeks all around in the south. And they were on our front porch, lined up, like, here's a treat for you. They weren't, and first of all, the problem with that is the pond is way down the back. They would have to crawl. Our driveway was like a 65 degree incline. It was really steep. I had a hard time walking up and down it because I got a bad knee. So it was pretty steep. And then I'm not saying they can't do that, but if they did that, there's another problem. Our front porch was a long 15-foot concrete, really nice. They'd done a nice job with the house. 15 feet concrete slab, completely smoothed out. And it had 2 stairs. At the bottom, concrete steps. You have to go up. Then you walk like 3 or 4 feet. Then there's another 2 concrete steps you have to go up before you get to the front door. So that's 4 concrete, average. I don't know how high the steps are, average sized step height. 4 of those, the turtles would have to crawl up. I've never seen a turtle that big, especially being able to crawl up a step without flipping over. There's just, and on all of them, 4 to 6 of them, and they were lined up in a straight line, like if you just put a pencil down. You open the front door and hello, hi, we're here for your lunch. We're here for the dinner party. It was like nuts, what the heck? Like, what are we going to do with these things? And so my husband, we were just cracking up, like, are they giving us a gift because I keep getting mad and screaming and yelling at them? That's what I felt like. So he picks them all up. And I was laughing so hard. He stacks them up on top of each other, like if you're holding a deck of cards. And they're so big. He tries to hold 2 or 3. He can barely hold 2. He had 3 on there and he couldn't even hold 3. So he stacks up 2 at a time and he has to carry them all the way down to the edge of the woods facing the pond. Because I know that's where they came from. They're water turtles. So he picks up 2 and starts carrying them. Well, as he's walking away, they start spraying pee everywhere. It starts going everything. So they start peeing all over him. I'm cracking up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if these Bigfoots gave you this, they must be dying laughing right now. He's like, great. So now I'm going to run these suckers all the way down the hill, and I'm covered in turtle pee. I'm like, yeah, and you got like, several more to go. So he carried all of them down to the edge of the woods. And I just took pictures of him stacking them up and how they were lined up. And he lined them all up like in a straight line again, facing the turtles like, here's your turtles back. Thank you, but we're good. We'll stick with chicken. Like, no, thank you. And there was nobody around. And first of all, how are you going to find that many turtles? And where are you going to get it? It was just bizarre. All of those things are just nothing I've ever encountered. That house, though, I felt like something bad was about to happen. At that house, there was, a little while later, it started to get bad. Like I felt like I'd be sleeping, and all of a sudden my eyes would just open, and I would feel the most. Oh my gosh! Like I said before, the only way I can describe the energy is just close your eyes and open your eyes and pretend like you're in a cage. And you open your eyes, and there's a polar bear right in your face. That's the fear that I felt. I would wake up and feel that fear, and I would know whatever it was right behind my head, outside my wall. Well, going from one end across the country road, past my window, and then you go back, of course, deep into the Appalachian Mountains again, towards Mammoth Cave. And it would be standing there, and I could just feel it. And I would be just the fear was over. I almost felt nauseous. And then one time I was feeling that, and I heard this loud roar. It's the second time I've heard this roar in two different places. But this time it was a lot louder. It was pretty terrifying because it was close. It was right behind my head. I heard a loud roar. It sounded like a lion. I don't know. It sounded like a lion and kind of a scream, but more like a lion. But it was so loud. My head was laying on my pillow, on my side, my cheek was on my pillow, and my whole pillow like vibrated from the sound. I felt vibrations of this roar through my pillow into my face from through the wall. Whatever this thing was outside, and it felt bad. It just felt really bad. And we went outside the next day to look, and there was a little, I don't know what you call this window. It's a little long, skinny rectangle window. Oh, probably 18 inches in height, about 6 feet long, went along the whole, almost if you go straight up the wall, right before you get to the ceiling, about a foot from that ceiling, just like a little skinny, I don't know, rectangle window that runs, parallel with the wall or horizontal, like flat. So we went outside and we could see like a bunch, and he had just power washed this house recently, like after we moved in. The people had it power washed, and my husband got a new power washer and he wanted to try it out, so he power washed it. And there was an oily, it wouldn't wipe off. Like when we tried to wipe it off, he got a ladder and tried to wipe it off, and it was smear. Like if you dipped your hand in baby oil and touched it on there, it was oily fingerprints. And there was a lot of them. When I say a lot of them, 10, 15, something like that, like a lot, all over the edge of the windowsill. And they were only, of course, on my side where I slept. And we did not have a curtain put up. I saw that and I was immediately like horrified. I said, I don't care if we got a freaking tape cardboard up. There's something going up there. So we put a curtain up, and I would sleep with the fan going sometimes in the room to block out the sounds from outside. And I noticed the fan was blowing the curtain. So I even put, toilet paper rolls that look so tacky. I put toilet paper rolls up to hold the curtains together from them gapping open, because I was so scared something would be able to peek through. But it got bad there quick, and I felt it felt like the energy changed. It felt like in the beginning it was a bunch of juveniles, but then it felt like something bad had moved in. We walked down the road. We had to drive, not walk. Sorry. The man lived across the street from us, older man. He'd been in that house. He said his wife grew up in this old little brick house and that he married her and he moved in there a long time. So we tried to ask him about I said, do you see anything as soon as I said that, he shut me down, talked right over top of me. So I waited till he was done and I'm like, have you seen anything? Shut me down again. I kept on trying. And finally, we went over to introduce ourselves, and finally he's like, behind my house, I want to say he said is 600 acres or something like that. And he said, I sold it to the logging company. He goes, it used to be our property. I sold it to the logging company. However, don't go back in there because there's a lot of abandoned mines that are there from a long, long time ago. It used to be coal mined and mined for other things very heavily, and they just left those mines. So a lot of foliage grew over the openings in the ground, so you could be walking along and just fall into a mine and just be gone. Like they're not covered up except from, foliage growing over it. I don't know if he was saying that just to scare me or if it was the truth, but I wasn't going to go back there because, one, it looked like a perfect place for about 1 million snakes to be down there, and there's a lot of poisonous snakes in Kentucky. I wasn't about to mess with that. Kentucky, where we lived, looked a lot like Tennessee, and the summer and spring, very jungly, very like Amazon kind of jungle looking, very thick. A lot of snakes, wasn't going to chance it. So I said, okay, well, very quickly, we put the house up for sale. We decided we couldn't stay there. I was scared. Who wants to pay a mortgage in a house every month? You can't use your back deck to sit on, especially at night. And you can't even have your dogs enjoy the back deck because they're growling and barking at stuff at the woods. And these are smart dogs. These are not dogs. They don't even bark at people that walk by our house. They don't bark unless something danger is there. Now, they'll bark if somebody pulls in the driveway or someone knocks at the front door. They don't bark just to bark. They're not that kind of dogs. So the energy just got bad really quick, and we wanted to move. We just didn't feel comfortable there. So we put the house up for sale, and as soon as we put the house up for sale, the energy, everything just changed. It felt bad. Everybody was on edge and stuff, all the noises, things were throwing rocks at the house at nighttime. And, they'd ring the doorbell, they'd slap the window, slap the house. It was just bad. So I said to my husband, I feel like if we don't go soon, like something's going to happen, And I kept saying that, and we moved. And within 12 days after us moving, I had a frantic call from the woman that bought our house, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but she had said that her husband died. I called her back. She said he died. She said he went outside and he was mumbling about seeing something. She couldn't understand him. He'd been in the military before. She thought he had PTSD issue. She took him to the hospital. Next thing you knew, she was in a coma and he died within 12 days of buying our house. And the cause of death, she said, was undetermined. They don't know. And I just felt like if we didn't get out of there, that was going to be us. That was going to be one of us. And we got out of there, and we moved to Indiana, where we're at now. The first night we were here, 2 mud balls hit the house. They followed us. And I said, why are you here? And they said to protect you from the wolves. And I guess that's what they refer to dogmen. The second night they were at the window, tapping at the window. And I heard the tapping. My cats were screaming. I felt the energy of them when they show up. They have a different energy they put off. Your hair stands up. And I said again, why are you here? Like, leave me alone. We moved to get away from this. And they said to me in my head, and I'd never heard this word before, CERN. And I'm like, you mean discern? And they were like, no. And they spelled it. They said just like this, no, C-E-R-N. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I didn't even know what that was. I had to look it up. And the activity is continued here, but it's not bad, and it's not disruptive, especially not when it's cold. It is a lot quieter, and it's a lot calmer here because we're in a neighborhood now. We don't want to be in a neighborhood, but this is where we live, and this is, where we're at this point in time. We do eventually have come to the realization that no matter where we move, four times in less than 3 years, we've bought and sold homes, and they've continued to follow. So we have realized we might as well move back to the country with some land where we want to live and just come to the realization that this is going to be part of our lives. So in a few years, 4 or 5 years, we're going to fix this house up and plan on selling it and going back to what we want to do. And that's where we're at today.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the 5-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah, the sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. His pickup man had been through it, getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, bucking hay bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I'd do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, getting at the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Pace of the city life drives me wild. The only tune is the cars rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, getting at the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Something going backwards and double time, getting at the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm, ride chicken porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sound.